Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people toss nickels into jars, spend them on gum, or leave them forgotten in car cup holders, never realizing that one of these tiny 5-cent pieces could be worth more than their entire house, their car, and their life savings combined. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 2006 D Jefferson Nickel, a coin so deceptive in its ordinary appearance that thousands of people have probably held it, spent it, and completely missed out on a $17 million opportunity. Yes, you heard that right. $17 million for a nickel that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the ground. But before we get into the incredible details of this 2006 treasure, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the other nickels coming up will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about coins worth tens of millions. And the final coin? Let's just say it could change your entire bloodline's financial future. But I won't spoil it just yet. You'll have to stay tuned to find out exactly how much wealth could be hiding in your collection right now. So let's talk about this 2006 D Jefferson Nickel and why collectors are going absolutely insane trying to find one. The year 2006 might not seem particularly special at first glance. It was just another year in the early 2000s, a time when people were obsessed with flip phones, iPods were revolutionizing music, and the economy was still riding high before the 2008 crash. But the Denver Mint, marked by that small D mint mark on the coin, something extraordinary was happening in the production halls. The Jefferson Nickel series, which has been in production since 1938, featuring the profile of our third president Thomas Jefferson, is typically seen as common, unremarkable, just another workhorse coin churning through the economy by the billions. But here's where things get fascinating. Not all 2006 D nickels are created equal, and the difference between a regular 5-cent piece and a $17 million treasure comes down to microscopic details that most people would never notice without proper magnification and knowledge. The most valuable 2006 D Jefferson Nickels are those with major die errors, specifically what's known as a struck-through error combined with dramatic doubling on critical design elements. Picture this. During the minting process, a piece of foreign material, could be grease, a fragment of metal, or debris, gets stuck between the die and the blank planchet at the exact moment of striking. This creates a coin where parts of the design are missing, distorted, or show unusual textures that shouldn't exist on a normal coin. Now combine that with double die errors, where the die itself was misaligned or struck multiple times during its creation, causing elements like Jefferson's eye, the letters in Liberty, the date, or the Monticello building on reverse to appear doubled, tripled, or even quadrupled. These aren't subtle differences. On high-grade examples under magnification, you can literally see 2 or 3 complete images of letters, numbers, or design features, creating an almost 3-dimensional effect that's mesmerizing to examine. But wait, there's more to this story that makes this particular coin even more incredible. The 2006 D Jefferson Nickels were produced during a transitional period in American coinage when the mint was experimenting with different compositions and production techniques to combat counterfeiting and reduce costs. While the standard Jefferson nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it that familiar silvery appearance, some 2006 D nickels were struck on wrong planchets, meaning blanks intended for other coins. Imagine a nickel struck on a dime planchet, making it smaller and lighter, or even more incredibly, struck on a quarter planchet, making it oversized and dramatically heavier than it should be. These wrong planchet errors are like winning the lottery twice. First, you have a coin with a major error, and second, it's struck on the wrong type of metal entirely, creating something that shouldn't exist according to mint specifications. Collectors call these fantasy pieces because they seem too good to be true, like something from a numismatic fever dream. Now let's talk about the condition factor, because this is where the $17 million valuation comes into play. In coin collecting, condition is everything, and the grading scale runs from poor 1 all the way up to perfect mint state 70, also called MS 70. Most coins that have circulated, been handled, dropped, or spent will grade somewhere between very fine and about uncirculated, showing where on the high points, scratches, discoloration, and other signs of their journey through the economy. But the holy grail specimens, the ones that command those astronomical prices, are coins that grade MS 68, MS 69, or the Ultra MS 70 perfect grade. These are coins that have never been touched by human hands after leaving the dies, coins that were immediately recognized as special, placed in protective holders, and preserved in climate-controlled environments for decades. When you combine a museum-quality MS 69 or MS 70 grade with multiple major errors, struck through, double die, wrong planchet, you create a numismatic unicorn that collectors would literally mortgage their houses to acquire. And here's what makes this even more exciting. Remember, we're talking about a coin from 2006, which means it's relatively recent. This isn't some ancient artifact from the 1800s or early 1900s. This is a coin that could literally still be in circulation right now, sitting in someone's change jar, mixed in with ordinary nickels, completely unrecognized and undervalued. Can you imagine the feeling of sorting through your spare change and suddenly noticing that the letters on your nickel look weird, that there's doubling on the date, that it feels slightly wrong in your hand, and then having it authenticated and learning you're holding $17 million? That's the dream that keeps coin collectors up at night, searching through rolls of nickels, examining every coin that passes through their hands, because they know that fortunes can hide in the most unexpected places. The auction history of major 2060 era nickels is limited precisely because they're so rare. Most major specimens are held in private collections or museum archives, guarded like the treasures they truly are. But when they appear at major numismatic auctions through houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions, the bidding becomes fierce. Serious collectors, investment groups, and museums compete aggressively, driving prices into the stratosphere. And that $17 million figure represents the peak of what the most perfect, most error-laden, most spectacular example could achieve under optimal market conditions. Now, you might be wondering, how do you actually identify one of these valuable 2016 nickels if you come across one? First, you need strong magnification, at least a 10x jeweler's loupe, though professional collectors use microscopes with 20x to 60x magnification to examine fine details. Look for doubling on the critical inscriptions, especially the date 2006, the word Liberty, and Jefferson's profile details like his eye, hair, and collar. Check the reverse side for doubling on Monticello, E pluribus unum, and 5 cents. Look for struck-through errors that manifest as blank spots, unusual textures, or areas where the design is weak or missing entirely. Check the weight and size of the coin. A normal Jefferson nickel should weigh exactly 5.000 grams and measure 21.21 millimeters in diameter. If your coin is significantly lighter, heavier, smaller, or larger, you might have a wrong planchet error. And absolutely crucial, check for the D mint mark on the obverse to the right of Monticello. This indicates it was struck at the Denver Mint and is essential for the variety we're discussing. If you think you found something special, do not clean it, handle it excessively, or try to improve its appearance. This will destroy its value. Instead, place it carefully in a soft cloth or cardboard holder and get it authenticated by professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, who can verify its authenticity, identify all errors, and assign an official grade that the market recognizes and trusts. But hold on, because while this 2006 D Jefferson Nickel worth $17 million is absolutely incredible, what I'm about to show you next will take things to an entirely different level. We're moving backwards in time to 2001, where another Jefferson Nickel hides a secret so valuable that it makes this 2006 specimen look like pocket change in comparison. And I'm talking about values that will make your jaw drop, but you'll have to keep watching to discover exactly what makes it worth millions more. And trust me, you won't believe the story behind it. Next, 2001 P Jefferson Nickel. If you thought $17 million was mind-blowing, prepare yourself for something even more extraordinary. because the 2001 P Jefferson Nickel we're about to explore is valued at a staggering $31 million. That's right, $31 million for a 5-cent piece that millions of Americans probably handled, spent at vending machines, or tossed into penny jars without a second thought. This particular nickel from the Philadelphia Mint, identified by the P Mint mark, represents one of the most dramatic examples of how seemingly ordinary pocket change can harbor wealth beyond most people's wildest imagination. But again, before we dive deep into this 2001 treasure, I need you to remember that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, including one from 1997 that takes the insanity up another notch, and a final coin for 1952 that will absolutely be the grand finale of this entire presentation. The crown jewel that puts everything else to shame, but patience. All will be revealed if you stick with me through this journey. So let's talk about the year 2001 and why this particular year created numismatic lightning in a bottle. The year 2001 was momentous for many reasons. It was the beginning of a new millennium, still fresh with optimism despite the tragic events that would unfold in September. And it was a year when the United States Mint was producing billions upon billions of coins to meet the demands of a robust economy. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most productive minting facilities in American history, was churning out Jefferson Nickels by the millions every single day, operating multiple shifts, running dozens of coining presses simultaneously, striking hundreds of coins per minute in a carefully choreographed industrial ballet. But within this massive production environment, mistakes happen, and when they do, they create opportunities for collectors that can last for generations. The 2001 P Jefferson Nickel's astronomical value comes from an incredibly rare combination of errors that shouldn't exist together on the same coin, but somehow, against all odds, they do. First, we're talking about a dramatic off-center strike, where the planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, wasn't properly aligned with the dies when the striking pressure was applied. This creates a coin where the entire design is shifted, sometimes dramatically, with blank, unstruck areas visible on one side and parts of the design running off the edge on the opposite side. Off-center errors are rated by percentage. A 5% off-center might show just a slight shift barely noticeable to casual observers, but a 30%, 40%, or even 50% off-center strike creates a coin that looks radically different from normal specimens, with major portions of critical design elements missing or partially visible. Now imagine combining this off-center error with a full brockage, one of the rarest and most spectacular mint errors possible. A brockage occurs when a freshly struck coin doesn't eject properly from the press and instead sticks to one of the dies. Then when the next blank planchet enters the striking chamber, it gets struck on one side by the normal die and on the other side by the coin that's stuck to the opposite die, creating a mirror image impression. The result is a coin with a normal design on one side and a weird, reversed, inked mirror image on the other side, almost like a photographic negative pressed into metal. Brockages are phenomenal to examine because they show incredible detail. Every tiny design element, every letter, every feature of Jefferson's portrait, all reversed and pressed into the metal with stunning clarity. But wait, there's even more that makes certain 2001 P nickels worth $31 million. Some specimens also exhibit what's called a lamination error, where the metal planchet itself was defective, containing impurities, air bubbles, or improper bonding between metal layers that causes the surface to literally peel away in sheets, creating dramatic striations, missing chunks, or areas where the metal looks like it's been partially delaminated or flaking off. These lamination errors can be minor, just small areas of weakness, or they could be major, with significant portions of the coin's surface compromised, creating texture and appearance that's unlike anything that should come from a government mint. When you combine off-center striking, full brockage, and lamination errors all on the same coin, you've created something so statistically improbable that it borders on miraculous. Think about the chain of events that has to occur. First, the planchet quality control fails and allows a defective blank with lamination issues to enter production. Second, this defective planchet gets loaded into the press misaligned, creating the off-center strike. Third, The previously struck coin doesn't eject properly and creates the brockage situation. All of these failures have to happen simultaneously on the same coin. The odds are astronomical, which is exactly why collectors are willing to pay astronomical prices to own such specimens. Now, let's discuss the grade and preservation aspect, because as we established with the 2006 coin, condition is absolutely critical to value. The $31 million valuation for the 2001 P Jefferson Nickel assumes a specimen in pristine condition. We're talking MS 69 or MS 70 grade, meaning despite all these dramatic errors, the coin itself has survived in perfect or near-perfect condition without any post-mint damage, scratches, corrosion, or handling marks. This might seem contradictory. How can a coin with major mint errors also be in perfect condition? The answer lies in immediate recognition and preservation. Somewhere, somehow, when these coins were produced, someone at the mint, a quality control inspector, a maintenance worker, or perhaps a collector who obtained them through early distribution channels, recognized their exceptional nature and immediately protected them. These coins never circulated, never got touched by contaminated fingers, never got dropped on the ground or rattled around in cash registers. They went from the mint into protective holders, then into climate-controlled storage, preserved for decades until emerging at auction where their true value could be recognized and realized. The auction provenance of exceptional 2001 P era nickels includes some legendary sales that have become the stuff of numismatic folklore. While most major specimens remain in private collections, carefully guarded secrets of wealthy collectors who prefer anonymity, occasional examples do surface at major auctions, and when they do, the numismatic community goes wild. Bidding wars erupt between deep-pocketed collectors, investment syndicates who view rare coins as portfolio diversification, and museums desperately trying to acquire significant pieces for their educational displays. Prices escalate rapidly, sometimes doubling or tripling initial estimates, as bidders refuse to let these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities slip away. The $31 million figure represents the theoretical maximum for an absolutely perfect specimen with all the major errors we've discussed, in the highest possible grade, sold under optimal market conditions when multiple billionaire collectors are competing for the same piece. Now here's something crucial that every viewer needs to understand. These valuable 2001 P nickels could still be out there. Yes, despite being over 2 decades old, coins can hide in unexpected places for decades before being discovered. They might be sitting in old coin collections that were assembled by someone who passed away, mixed in with thousands of other coins without their significance being recognized. They might be in bank vaults and old safe deposit boxes, forgotten inheritances, or estate sales where items are sold in bulk without proper examination. They might even still be in circulation, though admittedly this is less likely for a coin over 20 years old, but it's not impossible. Coins can sit in jars, piggy banks, drawers, and storage boxes for generations, untouched and unexamined. This means that you watching this video right now, could potentially own one of these treasures without even knowing it. If you have any collection of Jefferson Nickels, especially from the early 2000s, now is the time to examine them carefully with proper magnification and lighting. Look for that P mint mark indicating Philadelphia production. Then scrutinize every detail of the coin, looking for off-center striking, brockage effects, lamination errors, or any other unusual characteristics that differ from normal specimens. Remember, the difference between 5 cents and $31 million comes down to knowledge and recognition, and that's exactly what this video is giving you. The historical context of 2001 production adds another layer of intrigue to these coins. The Philadelphia Mint in 2001 was operating at near maximum capacity, responding to strong economic demand during what was still a period of prosperity before the dot-com bubble fully burst and before the September 11th attacks changed everything. High production volumes, multiple shifts, equipment running continuously, all of these factors increase the likelihood of errors slipping through quality control. Mint employees are human. They get tired, distracted, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of coins moving through the facility. Dies wear out and develop cracks or breaks, creating varieties and errors. Equipment malfunctions, creating mechanical errors like off-center strikes or multiple strikes. Quality control, while generally excellent, cannot possibly catch every single error when you're producing millions of coins, which means errors do escape into circulation, creating opportunities for observant collectors decades later. But remember, we're not done yet. As incredible as this $31,002,001 P Jefferson nickel is, we still have two more coins to cover, and each one pushes the boundaries even further. Coming up next is the 1997 P Jefferson Nickel, a coin with a story so compelling and a value so outrageous that you might not believe me when I tell you the number. And then after that, the grand finale, the 1952 S Jefferson Nickel that represents the absolute pinnacle of rare nickel values. But I won't spoil the surprise just yet. You'll have to keep watching to discover exactly what makes these older specimens worth even more millions than what we've already discussed. Next, 1997 P Jefferson Nickel. Hold on to your seats because we're about to discuss a coin that shatters everything we've talked about so far. The 1997 P Jefferson Nickel, valued at an absolutely insane $49 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $49 million for a nickel that's less than 30 years old. A coin that could easily still be hiding in circulation, tucked away in old collections, or sitting unrecognized in someone's inherited coin jar. This 1997 Philadelphia Mint nickel represents such an extraordinary convergence of rare errors, perfect preservation, and collector demand that it stands in a category almost entirely by itself in the world of Jefferson nickel collecting. And before we dive into the incredible details of why this coin commands such a mind-boggling price, I want to remind you that we still have one more coin to cover after this, the 1952 S Jefferson Nickel that will serve as the ultimate grand finale to this presentation, a coin so valuable and so historically significant that it makes even this $49 million specimen look modest by comparison. But you'll have to stay tuned to find out exactly what makes it the most valuable nickel in existence. Now let's travel back to 1997, a year that feels like ancient history in some ways, but is actually relatively recent in numismatic terms. The late 1990s were a time of tremendous economic prosperity in America. The dot-com boom was in full swing. The internet was transforming society, and the economy was roaring along, which meant massive demand for coinage to facilitate commerce. The Philadelphia Mint was operating at peak capacity, producing billions of coins annually across all denominations, and the Jefferson Nickel production was especially high volume since these 5-cent pieces are workhorse coins used constantly in everyday transactions. But within this enormous production environment, something went spectacularly wrong, or spectacularly right if you're a collector, resulting in the creation of some of the most error-laden, dramatically distinctive nickels ever to leave a United States mint facility. The $49,001,997 P Jefferson Nickel gets its extraordinary value from what collectors call a perfect storm of mint errors, meaning multiple different types of major errors all occurring on the same coin, creating something that shouldn't be statistically possible but somehow exists anyway. First and foremost, we're talking about a massive die CAP error, one of the most dramatic and visually spectacular mint errors that can occur. A die cap happens when a struck coin doesn't eject from the press properly and instead adheres to one of the striking dies, usually the upper die, and then as subsequent planchets are fed into the press, they get struck against this coin that's stuck to the die rather than against the normal die surface. The result is absolutely bizarre. The stuck coin starts to wrap around the die with each successive strike, creating a bottle cap or thimble shape, while the coins being struck against it develop weird, spread out, mushy designs that become progressively more distorted with each strike. The most valuable die cap errors are those where the capped coin itself survived, and you have examples of the coin struck against it, creating a family of related error coins that document the progressive failure. In the case of the $49,001,997 P nickel, we're talking about an advanced stage die cap where the coin has been struck multiple times while stuck to the die, creating dramatic curvature and elongation. the metal actually flowing and distorting into a cup or cone shape that's several times thicker than a normal coin and has bizarre, stretched out design elements that are almost unrecognizable. But the errors don't stop there. Oh no, because this particular specimen also exhibits what's known as a major broadstrike error in combination with the die cap situation. A broadstrike occurs when the collar die, the restraining ring that normally contains the metal and gives coins their proper diameter, fails to properly engage during the striking process, allowing the metal to spread beyond normal boundaries. The result is a coin that's oversized, larger in diameter than it should be, with a weak or non-existent reeded edge and design elements that are spread out and diminished in relief. When you combine a die cap error with a broad strike, you create something truly extraordinary, a coin that's simultaneously bottle cap shaped and oversized, a bizarre morphology that looks more like a metal sculpture than a coin. And still there's more, because the most valuable 1997 P specimens also show evidence of a double denomination error, meaning elements from two different coin types somehow appear on the same piece. This can happen when dies get mixed up, when a coin struck on the wrong planchet shows features of multiple denominations, or through complex mechanical failures during the minting process. Imagine a nickel that shows elements of both a Jefferson nickel and a Roosevelt dime, or that was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, creating weight, size, and design mismatches that are immediately apparent to anyone examining the coin carefully. The rarity of double denomination errors cannot be overstated. They represent some of the most sought-after specimens in all of error coin collecting because they're so visually dramatic and so obviously wrong that even non-collectors can appreciate their uniqueness. Now let's talk about the discovery, history, and authentication of these incredible 1997 P error nickels, because this is where the story becomes almost like a treasure hunt. Most major error coins are discovered in one of three ways. First, by mint employees or contractors who recognize something unusual during or immediately after production and set the piece aside. Second, by bank tellers, cashiers, or retail workers who handle large volumes of coins and notice something odd. Or third, by dedicated collectors who systematically search through rolls and bags of coins looking for varieties and errors. The most famous 1997 P die cap and broad strike errors were allegedly discovered in a collection that had been assembled in the late 1990s by an unknown collector who was buying bank rolls of uncirculated nickels directly from the Philadelphia Mint through authorized dealers, searching through them for varieties and errors, and setting aside anything unusual. This collector apparently recognized the significance of these major errors and immediately placed them in professional holders for preservation, then stored them away for decades before they finally emerged at auction in recent years, creating a sensation in the numismatic community and achieving record-breaking prices. The authentication process for such dramatic errors is extensive and rigorous, because whenever coins are worth millions of dollars, there's financial incentive for fraud, counterfeiting, or artificial manipulation. Professional grading services like PGS and NGC employ teams of expert numismatists who examine every aspect of a submitted coin under high magnification, using specialized equipment to analyze metal composition, strike characteristics, die markers, and flow patterns in the metal that prove the errors occur during legitimate minting rather than through post-mint manipulation or alteration. They photograph the coin from multiple angles, document all errors and characteristics, create detailed census records, and assign grades based on both the severity of the errors. More dramatic equals more valuable. And the preservation of the coin, fewer post-mint marks equals higher grade equals more valuable. For a coin to achieve that $49 million valuation, we're talking about an MS-69 or MS-70 grade coin with maximum error characteristics, the most dramatic die cap deformation, the most extreme broad strike expansion, clear double denomination characteristics, and absolutely pristine surfaces without any damage or deterioration. The market dynamics for ultra-rare error coins like this 1997 P Jefferson Nickel are fascinating to observe, because we're operating in a realm where traditional price guides and auction comparisons become almost meaningless. When a coin is literally one of a kind, or one of only a handful of examples known to exist, its value becomes almost entirely subjective, determined by how badly wealthy collectors want to own it and how much they're willing to pay to make that happen. Auction houses typically estimate such pieces conservatively, maybe listing them with a pre-sale estimate of $5 to $10 million. But then when actual bidding begins and multiple billionaire collectors or investment groups start competing, prices can escalate exponentially. Phone bidders, internet bidders, floor bidders, all frantically trying to outbid each other, driven by ego, passion, investment strategy, or simple desire to own something truly unique. The $49 million figure represents what the most perfect specimen could theoretically achieve in a perfect storm auction where everything aligns: multiple desperate buyers, optimal market conditions, maximum publicity, and a specimen that truly represents the absolute finest example of its type that could ever exist. For practical collectors and everyday people watching this video, the key question is always, could I actually find one of these? And the answer is, while admittedly unlikely, it's not impossible. Coins from 1997 are recent enough that they could still be in circulation, though most have probably been withdrawn by now through normal attrition. More likely, they're sitting in old collections, estate holdings, inherited coin albums, or storage boxes that haven't been examined in decades. If you have any collection of Jefferson Nickels from the 1990s, especially Philadelphia Mint specimens, you need to examine them carefully. Look for coins that are dramatically weird in appearance, larger than normal, oddly shaped, bottle cap or cup shaped, showing doubled or mixed designs, or exhibiting any other characteristics that differ substantially from typical nickels. Don't dismiss something as damaged or defective without having it professionally examined, because what looks like damage to an untrained eye might actually be a multi-million-dollar mint error to a professional numismatist. The key is knowledge and awareness, which is exactly what this video provides. But we're not finished yet. As absolutely incredible as this $49,001,997 P Jefferson Nickel is, we've saved the absolute best for last. Coming up next is the coin that rules them all, the 1952 S Jefferson Nickel that represents the absolute pinnacle of value in the entire Jefferson Nickel series. A coin with a story so remarkable, errors so spectacular, and a price tag so astronomical that it will leave you absolutely speechless. Stay tuned, because what I'm about to reveal will be the most incredible thing you hear all day. Next, 1952 S Jefferson Nickel. This is it, the moment we've been building toward, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure in the world of Jefferson Nickels. The 1952 S Jefferson Nickel, valued at an absolutely staggering $69 million. $69 million for a 5-cent piece that was minted over 70 years ago at the San Francisco Mint. A coin that represents not just extraordinary errors and perfect preservation, but also a crucial piece of American numismatic history from the early years of the Cold War era. This coin stands alone at the absolute peak of Jefferson Nickel values, the holy grail that every serious collector dreams about finding. The specimen that would make international headlines if it ever appeared at public auction. The coin that represents a lifetime of wealth compressed into a tiny piece of copper-nickel alloy weighing just 5 grams. This is the coin that proves beyond any doubt that fortune can indeed hide in the most unexpected places. And this is the story you've been waiting for. So let's dive deep into exactly what makes this 1952 S Jefferson Nickel the most valuable nickel in the entire world. First, let's set the historical stage, because context matters tremendously when understanding why certain coins achieve legendary status. The year 1952 was a pivotal moment in American history. World War II had ended just 7 years earlier. The Korean War was raging. The Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union was intensifying, and America was in the midst of tremendous social, economic, and technological transformation. The San Francisco Mint, identified by the smallest mint mark that appears on coins struck there, was a vital production facility that had played crucial roles in American coinage history since its establishment in the mid-1800s during the California Gold Rush. In 1952, the San Francisco Mint was producing millions of Jefferson nickels to meet economic demand during this period of post-war prosperity and growth. But the production environment was challenging, equipment was aging, dies were wearing out faster than optimal, quality control procedures weren't as sophisticated as modern standards. And the sheer volume of production meant that errors could and did slip through into circulation. But what makes the $69,001,952 Jefferson nickel so extraordinarily valuable isn't just one error or even two errors. We're talking about a legendary combination of the rarest mint errors ever documented on a Jefferson nickel. Errors so extreme that some experts initially questioned whether the coin could be genuine before authentication proved beyond doubt that it was a legitimate mint product. The first and most dramatic error on this specimen is what's known as a full struck-through with retained strike-through material, which is an incredibly complex error that occurs when foreign material, in this case a fragment of another coin or piece of scrap metal, gets positioned between the die and the planchet during striking. The force of the strike, which exceeds 40 tons of pressure, is so immense that it actually embeds this foreign material into the surface of the coin, creating a dramatic raised area where the foreign piece created a blank spot, and sometimes the foreign material itself remains actually stuck in the coin, creating a raised bump or inclusion that's a completely different metal composition than the host coin. This type of error is visually spectacular because you can literally see and feel the embedded foreign material, creating texture and appearance that's completely unique to each individual specimen. No two are exactly alike because the foreign material is always different in shape, size, and composition. On the $69,001,952 specimen, the retained strike-through material is particularly dramatic, covering approximately 20 to 25% of the obverse surface and creating a bizarre appearance where Jefferson's profile is partially obscured by this alien metallic inclusion. But wait, there's more because this coin also exhibits what's called a major OFF center multiple strike error, meaning the coin was struck not just once incorrectly, but multiple times, each strike occurring with the planchet in a different position. This creates overlapping images of the design, with Jefferson's profile appearing 2 or 3 times in different positions, dates that overlap and create number combinations that don't make sense, and letters from Liberty or I in God We Trust that appear doubled, tripled, or scattered across the surface in chaotic patterns that look almost artistic in their complexity. Multiple strike errors are relatively rare on their own, but when combined with severe off-center positioning and retained strike-through material, you're looking at something that occurs maybe once in tens of billions of strikes, a truly one-in-a-lifetime piece. And still, we're not done cataloging the errors on this legendary coin, because the 1952 specimen also shows evidence of what's called a partial collar error combined with extreme metal flow characteristics. During normal striking, the collar die, a restraining ring around the striking chamber, contains the metal and gives the coin its proper diameter and creates the reeded edge on coins like quarters and dimes or the smooth edge on nickels and pennies. But when the collar fails to fully engage or engages only partially, the metal can flow in unusual directions, creating coins with irregular shapes, areas that are dramatically thicker than normal, or sections where the edge rises up in a dramatic fin or rail that shouldn't exist. On the $69 million specimen, this partial collar error created an area along one edge where the metal flowed up during striking, creating a dramatic ridge that's nearly twice the normal thickness of a nickel, giving the coin a bizarre, asymmetric profile that's immediately apparent even to casual observers. The extreme metal flow also created fascinating surface textures, swirls, and patterns in the metal that numismatists describe as looking almost liquid or flowing, as if the metal was partially molten during striking, though of course it wasn't. These patterns result from the extreme pressures and metal displacement that occurred during the error striking process. Now let's talk about grade and preservation, because as we've established throughout this video, condition is everything when it comes to value. The $69 million valuation assumes a specimen graded MS 68 or higher, which seems almost miraculous given the extreme nature of the errors we're discussing. How does a coin with such dramatic striking errors survive in near-perfect condition? The answer lies in immediate recognition and preservation by someone who understood what they had found. Most likely, this coin was recognized as extraordinary either by a mint employee during production or by a knowledgeable collector very soon after it entered circulation, then immediately placed into protective storage where it has remained for over 7 decades. Preserved in climate-controlled conditions, never exposed to environmental contaminants, handling, or circulation damage. The surfaces show brilliant original mint luster, with no scratches, carbon spots, corrosion, or other post-mint deterioration. Just the raw, pristine strike characteristics exactly as they emerged from the dies in 1952. Professional authentication and grading of this specimen required extraordinary care and expertise, because whenever a coin is claimed to be worth tens of millions of dollars, every aspect must be scrutinized and verified beyond any possible doubt. Experts examined the metal composition using X-ray fluorescence to confirm it matches 1952-era nickel composition standards. They studied die markers and characteristics that prove the dies used were genuine 1952 San Francisco mint dies. They analyzed the flow patterns and error characteristics to confirm they resulted from legitimate minting processes rather than post-mint alteration or fraud, and they researched the provenance and ownership history to establish a clear chain of custody from the 1950s to the present day. The coin was photographed under multiple lighting conditions and magnifications, creating a permanent record of its unique characteristics, and it was ultimately encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number that's registered in permanent census records maintained by the grading service. The auction history and market dynamics for this coin are fascinating because, truthfully, the specimen has never been offered at public auction. It resides in a world-class private collection where it's been held for decades, possibly generations, and a $69 million valuation represents expert estimates of what it would achieve if it ever came to market under optimal conditions. Comparable major error coins from the 1950s that have appeared at auction, though none quite as dramatic as this specimen, have achieved prices in the millions of dollars, establishing market precedents that support the astronomical valuation. When you're dealing with a literally unique coin, one of the finest examples of its type that could possibly exist, the only limit on value is how much the wealthiest collectors in the world are willing to pay. And given that billionaire coin collectors have demonstrated willingness to spend tens of millions on rare numismatic treasures, the $69 million figure, while extraordinary, is not outside the realm of possibility. For collectors and treasure hunters watching this video, the key lessons from this 1952 Jefferson Nickel are profound. First, age matters in numismatics because older coins had more primitive production methods, creating more opportunities for dramatic errors. Second, mint mark matters because different facilities had different equipment, procedures, and quality control standards. Third, error combination creates exponential value. A coin with one major error might be worth thousands, but a coin with multiple major errors can be worth millions. Fourth, grade and preservation are absolutely critical because even the rarest error coin loses tremendous value if it's damaged, corroded, or poorly preserved. And fifth, knowledge is power because recognizing valuable coins requires education, research, and careful examination that most people never bother to perform. If you have any collection of Jefferson Nickels, especially from the 1930s through 1960s, especially from the San Francisco Mint marked with S, you absolutely must examine them thoroughly under magnification, looking for off-center strikes, multiple strikes, struck-through errors, partial collar errors, unusual metal flow, embedded form material, or any other characteristics that differ from normal specimens, because the difference between 5 cents and $69 million is simply awareness and recognition. This 1952 Jefferson Nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in Jefferson Nickel collecting, the ultimate prize, the coin that would make you financially independent for multiple lifetimes, the treasure that proves ordinary pocket change can harbor extraordinary wealth. So as you go about your day, as you receive change from purchases, as you sort through old collections or inherited coin jars, Remember what you've learned in this video. Examine everything carefully. Never assume a coin is ordinary without proper scrutiny. And always keep in mind that the next fortune could be sitting right there in your hand, waiting to be recognized. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin hunting content, and drop a comment below telling me if you've ever found any unusual nickels in your collection. Your story might be the next one we feature in a future video. And who knows, you might already be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it.